Hello, it is me. As you guess, I'm back for more elements of justice. It's trial time. We are going to be starting Rainbow's trial today. I highly doubt we're actually going to get into Rarity's trial today. There's no way. But yeah, hopefully we'll get some answers. And we're probably going to get some more questions as well, because this is how Agent Attorney works. But yeah. I do need to grab my notebook here. I have been using this to write down notes. I typically do this for Agent Attorney related things, for fan projects specifically. It just helps me keep better track of it, especially since updates can be a little stingy for some of them. But yeah, I got done everything I need to for both trials. I went back to the first case and rewatched that a couple days ago to get down any final information I need for Rarity. And I was correct about a letter. I was correct that one was mentioned in case 1. I got the pony wrong though. It was Surrey who mentioned getting a letter from Rarity. But here's the thing. That letter was about overall special fabric. So either they're using that as decisive evidence to show that Rarity has a connection to this, or it's an entirely different letter that we don't know about. It's hard to say. Of course, that trial isn't the main focus. We're doing Rainbow's trial. And, there's not a lot of information that we have here. There's some interesting stuff to note, of course, but, when it comes to Ace Attorney trials, we are very underprepared. It's like going into a case 1, except this is case 3. As for, and one thing I'm thinking too is who's going to be the prosecutor of both of these cases. The problem is I don't know if Equity is technically a prosecutor or not. I would like to say that she is because, well, she and Apollo has some very funky parallels going on right now, but yeah. Our other options are Trixie, which she's probably going to be involved in this trial in some way, shape, or form. I'd place my bet that she's at least a prosecutor on one of these 2 trials. Both Rarity and Rainbow's trials being pretty likely. But Luna's also a possible suspect for at least Rainbow's trial. I don't think she's done Rarity's. And if the Month of Justice episodes go by, she might be a little underprepared for this trial, just like being since Sanada's gonna be. It's gonna be interesting, that's for sure. One thing I don't want to say one thing I'm pretty confident on is that Celestia's definitely going to be the judge of one of these 2 cases. I'm not sure which, though. Depending on if we see Celestia or, our judge here, the other one's going to be at the other trial. But, yeah. I'm very nervous about this, but hey, an Ace Attorney trial has never gone wrong before. Especially one that doesn't involve direct murder. Very quickly before we begin here, I just want to show off the Apollo bracelet that I own legally. This is 3D printed, and it's by far one of the best financial decisions I have ever made in my life. I love this thing so much. Alright, without further ado, let's get into episode 4. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. I'm not even going to try. Here we go. Oh, we're getting a flashback.
Some pony once told me that to secure a guilty verdict, the prosecution must be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the means, motive, and causation of the accused. The defense, conversely, needs to show there is doubt for at least one of those things. But some pony else once said that ponies and ideas aren't usually that simple, that what you initially think of them isn't always right. What I've realized is that a defense attorney has to see that both sayings are true in some way. You need to be able to consider both sides in order to discern the truth. If you don't, then you may end up on the wrong side of the scales.
Yeah.
Prosecutor Trixie, I presume you are ready to call upon your first witness?
Trixie is, Your Honor.
I wonder who it could be. Probably the detective in charge of the investigation, if I had to guess.
So we're getting more. So we are getting more information about this case. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. There's a lot about this particular case that we still don't know about. And lo and behold, Private Eye, hello. Been a while since I've seen you, my sir. Oh boy. I knew we had to get information about this case at some point. I just wasn't expecting it to be now.
Huh. I know a few members of the police already, but I don't think I've ever seen this pony before.
Witness, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are?
Of course. My name is Private Eye, detective, and the lead investigator for this case.
This is for
So
case.
we have a prodigy on the defense and a prodigy on the witness stand.
Oh.
Quite the colorful and talented cast we have collected.
Prodigy?
Now, as I understand it, your position is a recent one, correct?
That is correct, my lady. How did you know?
Ah, your mentor and I have been acquaintances, if not occasionally friends, for quite some time. He's told me about you ever since he took you under his tutelage. He's quite proud of your skills and thinks that with enough time, you'll become a great detective yourself.
Is that so? Well, I must be sure to thank him. And I hope to live up to that praise today in court.
I am more than certain you will, Detective Private Eye.
God, this is so ironic considering what happened in Crusade for a Turnabout. Irony.
If this mentor is who I think it is, then no doubt Private Eye will be a formidable witness. Which means I can't afford to let up for even a second. Overall's counting on me. I won't let him down.
Now then, witness, would you care to explain how only the defendant and the defendant alone could have killed the victim?
Right away, Miss Trixie. Both the defendant, Mr. Concept, and victim, Miss Estella, had the same shift pattern. In fact, on the night in question, they were the only ones working that particular shift pattern.
Okay.
Both of them were working together on a new design for an upcoming play, you see. It has been confirmed through questioning members of Bridalway that Estella was seen heading outside at 2 minutes past 10 that night. Both she and Overall were supposed to be on break by 10 o'clock, but Overall continued working until 1:15. Only then did he take a break. Now, with both of them being the only ones taking a break at that time, well, that speaks for itself.
There you have it, defense.
Alright.
The good detective has confirmed it. Mr. Concept is the only one who could have committed the murder that night.
I heard him just fine, Prosecutor Trixie. That doesn't mean I wholeheartedly accept the idea.
No, Trixie supposes you wouldn't. And Trixie supposes you intend to fight back against it?
That is indeed in the job description.
Stubborn. Trixie would be surprised if it wasn't so on brand for defense attorneys to—
Pardon the interruption, Miss Trixie, but are you sure that such behavior is becoming of a practitioner of law?
Huh?
Ditto, huh?
There is something my mentor once said that I think applies readily to this moment. The police, the prosecution, the defense, the courtroom, all of us are instruments of the legal system. We work to obey the letter, if not the spirit of the law, both in the ones we fulfill and how we conduct ourselves under them. Wouldn't it be best for you to conduct yourself accordingly?
You know it's not exactly smart for a detective to lecture the prosecution, right?
We have but one life, Miss Trixie. I believe we must always be true to ourselves.
The detective raises a fair point. Prosecutor Trixie, I would ask that you refrain from taunting as much as possible.
Nice damage,
Ahem.
right?
Trixie will take what you have said into consideration and cease taunting the defense. For now.
I like this Detective Private Eye character. Well, if we're getting back on topic, is this all you wanted the witness to say?
Oh no, Trixie's witness has prepared a whole testimony on the victim's death. One that will ensure there is no room for doubt that the defendant is, in fact, guilty. Witness, are you ready?
Certainly, Miss Trixie. I'll give it my all.
Okay. How Estella died.
While on her break, Estella exited the building through the back door and went into the alleyway behind the theater. Once she was outside, the victim was attacked from the front with a blunt instrument, which we found nearby. The weapon was a walking stick. It's old but very durable. It was likely used in an old production and was recently thrown away. Our analysis concluded the victim was hit at least 3 or 4 times, forcing her to the ground. She died not from the trauma, but from blood loss.
Okay.
A very concise testimony, Detective. Well done.
Witness, do you have the autopsy report?
Of course, I have it right here.
Time test estimated to be between 10:15 and 10:45, so about 30 minutes, give or take. Well, first trauma, spot in the front of her head, but died from blood loss. Okay. I'm gonna focus on taking down notes for this at a later point after I've done the reaction. This trial is definitely going to come back up again and again until we see the terrible truth at the end of it. So, I'm just going to focus on taking this in now and deal with writing things down later.
What an awful thing. She must have suffered greatly, slowly bleeding to death alone like that.
Indeed, I could never imagine the overwhelming agony she must have been in. I suppose there may be some solace in the fact that she is no longer in pain.
Poor Mr. Concept. It must be a unique kind of hurt to hear us talk about Stella this way. I'd better get us to move away from that topic for now.
Yeah.
Let's return to the matter at Hoof. I have to ask, on what grounds was the defendant arrested?
Oh, that's easy. We found his hoof prints on the weapon.
I see. I'm assuming there was an arrest report.
But of course, here it is. Overall was caught red-hooved between the back door of the building and the victim at 10:30 p.m. Not literally red-hooved, of course, but he may as well have been. Would you like Trixie to add this to the court record?
Yes, please.
Do I have a choice?
No.
That's about 10:30.
Thank you for that, Prosecutor Trixie. Now then, defense, you may conduct your cross-examination.
Oh, I definitely plan on doing more than just conducting it. I'll pry this testimony apart.
Let's see what you got, Sanada.
While on her break, Estella exited the building through the back door and went into the alleyway behind the theater.
Hold it! I'm assuming it's normal to exit the building via the back door?
Oh, very much so. For those working at the theater, anyway. The same couldn't really be said for a citizen just deciding to enter the theater through the back door.
That goes beyond normal and straight into criminal territory.
Yeah.
What about her deciding to head into the alleyway, though? Doesn't that seem odd?
I'm quite certain she simply needed some fresh air. During my investigation, I've heard repeated claims of the director being somewhat hard to work for.
I
That
mean,
definitely lines up with what I've heard.
yeah.
I had a diagram made of the crime scene, if you'd like to see it in detail.
Yes, please.
I would. Thank you, Detective.
As you can see, everything we deem relevant has been included.
Yes, it's all there. They even color-coded certain points of interest.
Alright.
Trixie guesses you'll want this added to the court record, too.
Just get on with it.
Hey, Trixie was being sincere that time.
Allow me to add this diagram of the crime scene for us all.
Alright.
Detective, please continue with your testimony.
Once she was outside, the victim was attacked from the front with a blunt instrument, which we found nearby.
Hold it! How did you determine the attack came from the front?
The location of the wound tells us such. It was on the left side of the victim's head, near the cranium. This means the attacker swung from their right. The impression also has a distinctive angle that suggests a sharp and angular attack with the weapon from the front.
Sharp and angular? Could you be a bit more specific?
More specific? Have you ever played hoofball? Forgive me, I don't believe I actually got your name.
It's Sanada. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing each other a lot, Detective. But to answer your question, no, I never really was interested in going to big sports games like that. I did enjoy the school choir, though. Listening to them, anyway.
It wasn't my preferred sport either. I took a particular liking to fencing. However, I knew a few colts who obsessed over hoofball back in my school days. They had all sorts of names for the types of swings you'd see in a game. One of them was, rather fittingly, called the chop. Most professionals wouldn't perform it, but the occasional rookie would, if they weren't properly trained. The attack, then, I would describe it much like that. A downward angled chop towards the victim.
Witness.
Okay.
You say that this chop is something that rookies would perform. What about first-time murderers?
Now hang on a minute.
Ah, yes. Let Trixie rephrase. Detective, if you were to attack some pony quickly, without much forethought, and if you had such a weapon as described, what would be the easiest way to attack?
Probably just as I had described. No pony at all skilled in the art, if you'll pardon the expression, would do it. However, if one was desperate or panicking.
Thank you, witness. You may continue your testimony.
She does have a point, but,
The weapon was a walking stick. It's old but very durable. It was likely used in an old production and was recently thrown away.
Hold it! How did you conclude the stick was the murder weapon?
We found some blood on the stick. When we tested it, it matched the victim's blood. Moreover, the impression left matched that of the stick itself. My team and I also found this stick in the nearby dumpster, so it's quite likely that the murderer picked it out of there prior to the attack. Also, as Miss Trixie pointed out, we found the defendant's hoof prints on the stick in question.
The stick was found in the dumpster? After it had been used?
Presumably.
That seems rather strange. Wouldn't it make sense for the murderer to dispose of it? More carefully, I mean.
That was something of a bother at first, but the leading theory is that this crime was not premeditated. It's possible that the defendant and the victim were arguing next to the dumpster, as indicated by the location of the body. Then, the defendant simply grabbed what was available. He attacked, but the shock of what he did, it must have frozen him to the spot, leading, incidentally, to his arrest. The most he could muster was tossing the murder weapon back into the dumpster. Nothing more.
So overall froze up for that long after presumably attacking Estella? What nonsense. But sadly, I don't have anything on hoof that could suggest otherwise.
Trixie can see you turning your gears over and over, Defense. You're trying to make sense of this. Unfortunately for you, crimes of passion rarely fit into a logical chain of events.
Your point is noted, Prosecutor Trixie. Detective, please continue your testimony.
Our analysis concluded the victim was hit at least 3 or 4 times, forcing her to the ground. She died not from the trauma, but from blood loss.
Hold it! How long did it take the victim to bleed out before she died?
I can't say. That information was beyond the ability of our analysis to acquire. We could only estimate her time of death.
Okay.
However, we do know the fact that she bled out shows that she died some amount of time after the disturbance report was made.
A disturbance report? What disturbance report?
Oh, dear. Have you not received a copy, Miss Sanada?
No, this is my first time hearing of it. What was it about?
Ah, yes. A shining example of Equestria's consideration for one another. Some pony did their civic duty and reported suspicious screaming nearby.
If no pony minds, may I take a closer look?
By all means. Prosecutor Trixie, if you would, please.
Very well, if Trixie must. It won't change anything, though.
The report indicates screaming was heard the night of the murder. It was made at 10:12 p.m. You say this will make a difference? I don't think so, Trixie. I don't think so.
It's pretty definitive, if Trixie does say herself. Trixie appreciates having such a reliable citizen, making her job a little easier.
This might be the chance I need. I'll have to confront it directly, though. Detective I, may I request you append a new comment to your testimony regarding this disturbance report?
You most certainly may, Miss Sanada. I'll do so right away. This disturbance report from a third party confirms that everything we've established is sound and valid.
Objection!
Don't think so.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that is simply not the case.
Trixie fails to see how that simply isn't. How exactly?
Who's being the impatient one now? If Prosecutor Trixie would wait a moment, she may learn a thing or two.
What is this? You're rubber and I'm glue?
Miss Trixie, there's no need for this hostility. Miss Sanada hasn't even explained her reasoning.
It's called banter, Detective. Perhaps you should take a course in it?
Prosecutor Trixie, let the defense present her point before you start shooting her down.
Fine. Defense, what are you getting at?
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the background theme because this is a remix of a bottled objection theme. I recognize the beats. You can't fool me. Very good choice, though. Very good choice. It's not a sound clip so far for the hold it and injection are also really good. The hold it kind of sounds a little similar to Phoenix's one in Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice. That's probably just a coincidence, but I noticed it a little bit.
Pay attention, Prosecutor Trixie, and I'll show you. You may admire this anonymous citizen for doing their duty, but I admire them for a different reason.
What? Their penmanship?
No, actually. Their punctuality. Do you remember what time Overall was reported to have gone on break?
Yeah, 10:15. What's your...
Bingo!
That's right. 10:15. But this report tells us that this anonymous citizen heard screaming at 10:12 p.m., a full 3 minutes before Overall had even stepped outside for his break. The contradiction is prima facie, self-evident. Unless you're telling me the laws of physics cease to exist in that particular alleyway, there is no way my client could have committed this murder.
Objection!
Whoa, what's with her?
Your Honor? Trixie must apologize to the court!
Wait, you're apologizing?
Don't act surprised! I can be humble when I need to!
Prosecutor Trixie!
Yes, of course, Your Honor. You see, Your Honor, that is the wrong disturbance report.
The wrong.
The wrong what? Do you really expect the court to buy that?
Don't you start biting at me, Buster! I'm well aware this looks like a sham, but I'm telling you it's the truth!
Then what am I even holding here?
That's an earlier draft with a transpositional error! An incorrect number was written on the report, which of course means the time is incorrect.
Really?
That's absurd!
Prosecution, if that's the case, where is the actual report?
Right here, Your Honor.
It says that the real time of the report is 10:21 p.m., not 10:12 p.m.
Exactly, Your Honor. We also know that the defendant went on break at 10:15. This report now tells us that a full 6 minutes would have passed afterwards, and lines everything back up, including the time that he was arrested, 10:30 p.m.
Well, that's awfully convenient. What else are you gonna pull out of that hat of yours?
Only the things I plan on pulling out. Not blunders, not fake pieces of evidence. Some clerk must have handed me the wrong item first before sending me this correct one.
Couldn't you tell that they were completely different?
Could you? Look, they're the same kind of manila envelope.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
didn't have a chance to read it over until... Well, really, I should thank you for pointing that out.
It's not exactly my job to catch your mistakes. Nor is it yours to sit back and rely on the defense.
Oh, so now you're an expert on how the prosecution should behave? Look, Missy, you just got out of jail not even a year ago. There are legal techniques you haven't even dreamed of that I could teach you.
All you've taught me so far is that the prosecution may have been huffing too much fireworks smoke today.
That's enough! Prosecutor Trixie, it is extremely unprofessional for you to have handed this court outdated evidence while you are in possession of an updated one. You as well, defense. Giving into the prosecution's inciting comments is one thing, but supplying your own? That is equally unbecoming. This is a murder trial. A pony's life has been lost while another hangs in the balance. You should both be more respectful to that fact. Be that as it may, I am inclined to think this is an honest mistake.
Having Celestia as a judge is such a breath of fresh air. Look, I love the attorney judge, but my god, he's a pushover. This is quite refreshing. Finally, a judge that doesn't deal with anyone's bullshit. But, yeah. I don't really have much to say here. I'm just absorbing the information.
Therefore, I am willing to overlook it, especially since we now have the updated report in our hooves properly. Nevertheless, Prosecutor Trixie, I will be speaking to you about this slip-up after court is adjourned.
Yes, Your Honor. Trixie understands.
Detective, I believe your cross-examination has come to a close. You may leave the witness stand. Thank you for your time.
The pleasure has been all mine, my lady. Good day to you all.
Darn it. I would have preferred that Princess Celestia toss that report out. Guess you can't win them all. But there goes that particular angle. Maybe it was too much, having all my hopes riding on that one thing. I also need to learn to keep a cooler head. It won't do to get all agitated like that. I'm liable to miss something important.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely need that something, if it means finding a new way to clear my client's name. I just have to find a different opening.
And now we're jumping back to Rainbow's trial. Okay. And it is Luna. Okay. Okay. Well then. I imagine that's how we're going to be learning bits and pieces about that trial. It's going to be before that. So we're probably going to get another moment like that before the start of Rarity's trial as well then. Interesting. But yeah, we're going to be seeing Luna again. A very nice surprise.
Court is now in session for the trial of Rainbow Dash. Are the prosecution and defense ready?
That human is the judge again? Good afternoon, Your Honor. I didn't realize you were still in Equestria.
Oh, by the way, the courtroom here looks really good. Also, this probably means that Celestia is gonna be the judge over Rarity's trial. That also means it's either gonna be like Equity or probably the more likely option, Trixie is gonna be the prosecution on Rarity's trial. Which means there's a very high likelihood that Apollo's gonna have to deal with a pony-bite version of Truce. Kind of. Oh, he's gonna have fun with that.
Miss Sanada? Ah, what a pleasure it is to see you again. And you as well, Mr. Wright.
Forgive me for asking, Your Honor. But was I mistaken in thinking another pony would be presiding today?
No. You are quite correct. Another pony intended to act as your judge today.
Celestia.
Unfortunately, they were called away at the last minute to preside over another trial.
Okay, so it's confirmed.
That's highly irregular, especially for something like this. Surely one of the princesses could substitute for them.
Speaking of.
Though since Princess Luna is prosecuting, then that means Princess Celestia is still available. What could call her away? And as for this other trial, no guesses as to which one that is.
Without many others who could preside over such an important case, I was offered the chance to stay here a bit longer. I hope that doesn't disappoint you.
Not at all, Your Honor. I'm happy to see you again. Mr. Wright speaks very highly of your abilities.
Does he now?
Yes, of course, Your Honor. We veterans gotta stick together, you know? It's great to see you again. Did you enjoy watching that race?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked. I've seen many things in my day, but I've never been so surprised at how fast these Pegasi can fly. The only downside was that, well, I was kind of expecting it to be a little bigger. Apparently, I missed a real whopper of a race that occurred not long ago. What was its name again? The Pedestrian 600? Anyway,
Equestrian 600.
please extend my gratitude to Princess Twilight for the tourist spots she recommended. I've been seeing everything I can from up here.
Don't remind me.
Also, it is so weird seeing Phoenix's model like this. And canonically in the timeline, This is the first time that Phoenix is going to be acting as co-counsel to someone. Because the only other time that's happened is the final case of Spirit of Justice. It's so bizarre, but not an unwelcome one. I appreciate it.
Still, I believe my earlier question needs an answer. Are the prosecution and defense ready to begin?
The defense is ready, Your Honor.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
Oh, Princess Luna, are you feeling all right? You appear tense.
Apologies. We did not mean to offend. Recent events' totality of calumnies, indignities, and deceits have weighed most heavily upon my soul. Compounding this is the knowledge of my own involvement in such affairs. I am vexed by the whims of conscience.
Calumnies? Indignities?
Did she get harder to understand, or is that just me?
I haven't heard her get that bad in a while.
This trial, however, will allow me to rectify my mistakes. You have my promise as a princess of Equestria. I shall proceed towards the truth beyond even a millennia of troubled circumstances if needed. That is my duty as a prosecutor.
Luna.
And that is my only duty today. I am ready to proceed with the trial, Your Honor.
Athena told me about the last time she talked with Princess Luna. She said they ended on pretty good terms. But you can see how she's looking at us, right?
That expression is one you would only see on the dark side of the moon.
You think she just woke up on the wrong side of the bed?
I think it's more than that. But I also suspect she isn't in any mood to offer us help. That's for sure.
Well, maybe we can help her out. Worth a try, right?
I suppose.
Prosecutor Luna?
What is it?
I just want you to know that what happened before, it wasn't your fault. You shouldn't blame yourself.
As prosecutor, it is my responsibility to ensure a trial reaches a satisfactory conclusion. I failed in that regard, to an extent that is unjustifiable.
You didn't know the truth, though. None of us did, until the end.
Yeah.
Hence why the truth will no longer evade me and lie in wait until it bears its fangs. I will find it and strike first.
Princess Luna, I'm serious. You can't take what happened personally. It always ends badly.
Your opinion is duly noted, Blue Phoenix.
Angry as well as defensive, it seems. Not that I blame her. The last trial was trying on every pony involved.
Yeah, case 2 was, certainly something, alright. But, I know from the Bond's Justice episode that Luna is not exactly feeling that great. I don't blame her, considering how Crusade for a Turnabout happened, but yikes. I get it, I do.
I can't imagine what it was like for her afterwards. Going back to Canterlot after everything that happened? The rumors must have been absolutely scandalous. Even a princess would feel their weight, their barbs.
Though it surprises me, Blue Phoenix, that you hold yourself there at the side today, rather than at the forefront of the defense. In your place stands Miss Sanada. Tell me, why am I not facing you, Blue Phoenix?
Oh, yeah. There's a reason for that. Don't worry. Actually, well, you see, we decided that...
Don't underestimate my capabilities, Princess Luna. You should know my track record speaks for itself. The silent treatment already, huh?
Your vocabulary, Prosecutor Luna. Reminds me of the archaic garden path sentences I'd seen in some of my earliest judicial days. Nevertheless, I appreciate your commitment to re-evaluating yourself in the name of preserving the law. Mr. Wright's concerns aside, your resolve is commendable. Speaking from experience, a prosecutor who is willing to better themselves is something that should be encouraged, if only so others follow suit.
Edgeworth.
You humble me with your words, Your Honor.
And with that, let us resume this trial. Prosecutor Luna, you may make your opening statement.
Without hesitation, Your Honor.
Let's do this.
Well, here we go. Time to set up the pieces and play the board.
Right, let's do this.
Today's proceedings shall center around the collapse of Wonderbolt reservist Streamline. The fault of such a collapse lies at the hooves of Rainbow Dash, another Wonderbolt reservist.
She was cleared for murder ages ago! Give it up already!
What's the big idea of choosing her for everything? Your pony's got a problem with her or something?
Order in the court! Order!
Whoa! I didn't anticipate the reaction to be so fierce. I guess that's what you get for trying to pin a second case against a celebrity.
Yeah.
Especially in her hometown, no less. Not that Luna even looks a little fazed by it. I'm guessing she was expecting this.
I will remind the gallery that they are not to interrupt our proceedings again. You will be escorted out if needed. Prosecutor Luna, you may continue.
Streamline collapsed during a mandatory training session at the Wonderbolt Academy on the 20th of February, or yesterday. On-site medical personnel, after evaluating her condition, escorted her to Cloudsdale General Hospital for treatment. The hospital administered a tox screen upon her admittance. The initial report, however, came back negative.
Yeah. That's something I have written down my notes that it came back negative.
It came back negative? Then why did the authorities suspect poisoning?
No tox screen has a 100% efficacy rate, Your Honor. There are other ways of demonstrating the presence of poisoning. That includes observing the victim's symptoms. The ones that Streamline exhibited, which will be brought up in testimony, match the symptoms of a certain poison. Given that, the prosecution feels it is appropriate to consider this an attempted poisoning. Further evidence indicates that only Rainbow Dash could have committed this crime.
I'm afraid the defense simply cannot take this as fact. You will need to prove without any doubt that Rainbow can be tied to the poisoning.
Nothing will be left to doubt, Miss Sanada. Of that, you can be most certain.
We'll see about that.
Now then, the prosecution calls its first witness, the lead detective, to the stand.
Oh, Philo, you poor
Whoa.
thing.
And I thought Gumshoe was the reigning champ of shabbiest detective ever.
Gumshoe Magic!
That's no ordinary detective, Mr. Wright.
Huh?
That's Philo Reed, the head of the Equestrian Bureau of Investigation, and another member of the High Council.
Yeah.
Seriously? This guy is part of the same group as Lockkeeper Equity? As well as the Equestrian Bureau? Wait, that's the organization that Private Eye mentioned. Which means...
Yes, that's his mentor.
Wait a sec. Didn't Private Eye say it was called the Equestrian Bureau of Intelligence?
That he did.
You don't seem surprised.
Well, for as level-headed as Private Eye is, he's not without his quirks. I often saw him confuse the names for certain departments during his time. I corrected him once, and he went bright red with embarrassment.
If only certain others were as self-conscious as he is.
I'm surprised he's here, given what Lawkeeper Equity alluded to at the end of the previous trial. I thought he was leading the investigation into Rarity's case.
He's on investigation for both cases. That's... oh boy. And you can very clearly tell he did not get a lot of rest last night. I feel bad. Honestly, I do feel a little bad. Like, I'm sorry.
But judging by his lackluster appearance, he might be leading both that and this one.
Yep.
Still, I can't underestimate him. Not in the slightest. No pony becomes a living legend over empty feats after all. He may look tired, but I'll bet that his mind is as sharp as ever.
Well, we'll see about that.
Witness, state your name and occupation.
Philo Reed, detective, and Equestria's most sought-after one at that.
Detective Reed, are you sure you'll be able to testify? You seem a touch out of it right now.
Of course, my lord. Don't let my appearance fool you. Books, nooks, and... covers and undercovers, I'm here to seek them all out. Truth makes no moves unless you do.
Oh, you poor thing.
You come again?
No pony said anything.
Ah, all's well that ends well then.
Maybe if he falls asleep again, we could have him wheeled out of the courtroom.
Phoenix!
I'd rather spend today actually speaking with the detective than tucking him into bed.
Witness, rouse yourself.
Apologies, I am still a bit groggy. Nothing that can't be handled, I promise. My duties as a detective come first before anything else. My protégés at the EBI have certainly gotten worse from me.
In that case, please proceed with your testimony.
Alright. The poisoning.
The victim was poisoned with a substance known as grickle grass. How do I know, you ask? The symptoms of said poison are very distinct, and they are a perfect match with the victim's condition. Those symptoms are a combination of sweating, a dangerously high heart rate, lightheadedness, followed by vomiting, extreme anxiety, and eventual collapse. Additionally, grickle grass is fairly simple to make, as poisons go. Despite this, I must admit that Miss Streamline was tested for any signs of the poison, but the results came back negative. Several Wonderbolts have made mention of seeing Rainbow Dash swapping juice boxes in her own locker with the ones in the victim's, though. Thus, the conclusion I have arrived at is that the juice box was the method by which the defendant poisoned the victim.
It would have been nice to know about this whole swapping juice boxes detail before we stepped into court. I thought she was just putting juice boxes into Streamline's locker.
Well, then, that would certainly explain a few things, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think this is what Rainbow Dash was hiding from us?
Maybe. Why would she hide that from us, though?
I think that's definitely something Rainbow hid from us on purpose, but I don't think that's the entire... I don't think that's all she's trying to hide from us, though. That's definitely that's probably gonna be a detail used for breaking her psych locks, but it's not gonna be the full reason.
I don't know.
Thank you for your testimony, Detective Reed. Do you have anything further to add?
I always have more to say, my lord.
Oh dear. Today's going to be a long day, isn't it?
I should hope not. I've got a schedule to keep.
Detective, cease these antics.
Perhaps evidence will please our dear prosecutor. Behold, a report from the finest department you will find in Equestria, containing details on gricklegrass and its effects, for the perusal of all present, be they pony or human.
Okay. Okay, that the systems of grickle grass poison do match the report that we did get streamlined when she passed out. That tracks.
Thank you, Detective Reed. Now then, defense, you may begin your cross-examination.
No sweat, Sanada. We've got this.
Right. Let's get started.
Let's get some more information here.
The victim was poisoned with a substance known as grickle grass. How do I know, you ask? The symptoms of said poison are very distinct, and they are a perfect match with the victim's condition.
Hold it! Why are you so confident it was this poison specifically? Couldn't it be something else? Like, for example, an allergic reaction to something the victim ate that day?
Objection! Your first point of contention, and you're already blaming the victim? How cowardly. Streamline's medical records have been checked, and she has no such allergy that would cause her to react in the manner she did.
To clarify, grickle grass is neither lethal nor noticeable in a single dose. No, you would need repeated small doses over time before the effect's onset.
What sort of length of time are we talking about?
About a week, I'd say.
You sound very sure.
Yes, I am indeed certain. My knowledge of botany is variable, but I'm quite well up in poisons.
I see. Then an allergic reaction doesn't seem likely. They tend to occur soon after ingestion, not upwards of a week, don't they?
Indeed, Your Honor.
Guess I can't argue that route.
This week-long estimate matches the timeline of events quite nicely as well. The other Wonderbolts have all made statements to this effect. All mentioned that the victim has been looking a lot more withdrawn and lethargic as of late, which affected her performance. From what I've gathered, Streamline was quite an adept flyer, having a considerable degree of control over her wings. A quiet flyer, too. She hardly made any noise. To see her suddenly struggling and making a ruckus when attempting a simple takeoff was highly unusual by all accounts.
Well, that clears that up then. Thank you for that information, Detective.
You're quite welcome, my lord. A font of knowledge such as myself often enjoys bestowing insight upon others.
Evidently.
That was worth a shot. Don't let it get you down, though.
It's all right. I wasn't on the offensive anyway.
Really?
Well, some pony has to make the first move, right?
I guess so. What do you mean by that, though?
You'll see. Don't worry.
Continue your testimony, Detective.
Those symptoms are a combination of sweating, a dangerously high heart rate, lightheadedness, followed by vomiting, extreme anxiety, and eventual collapse. Additionally, grickle grass is fairly simple to make, as poisons go.
Hold it! Would you say the fact that grickle grass being an easy poison to make is what led you to suspect that it was used here?
Objection! Was I expecting too much of you when I hoped you would at least pay attention to the detective's testimony? He has made it quite clear as to his reasons, of which there are several.
Nevertheless, I will answer. Yes, Miss Sanada, I would say just that. Miss Rainbow Dash, or any pony really, could conceivably make it without much issue. However, this is in conjunction with the timeline of events I mentioned earlier, along with the very particular set of symptoms the victim presented.
I see. Thank you for the clarification.
Sanada?
Yes, Mr. Wright?
I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but why are we just letting Prosecutor Luna and the detective clarify their points with no pushback? Even your first move seemed to be doing just that.
We spoke about chess earlier today. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. Is that relevant?
Just like chess. Sometimes I find it's better to stop and pay attention. The opening move isn't necessarily a declaration of offensive intent, but more so gauging how your opponent reacts. The same applies to what just happened here. We now know how they'll respond to their points being questioned and bolstered without incident. Essentially, it's about observation and knowing when to strike.
That's a really unique strategy.
Yeah.
But I get that knowing that is important. But we're not just going to let them walk all over us, are we?
Of course not. When an opening presents itself, I'll be sure to take advantage of it. Right now, though, Luna seems a bit guarded. She probably won't give us any more information if I object too quickly.
I'm not sure which side of her I prefer. Before, she might as well have been on the stand herself with how much she was jumping in.
Regardless, as she is now, it's better to listen first. Lull her into a false sense of security before springing forward.
Pardon me for interrupting, but I did mention I have a schedule to keep today. Can we resume, or are you finished with me?
Yes. Good point, Detective. Continue your cross-examination, defense.
Despite this, I must admit that Miss Streamline was tested for any signs of the poison, but the results came back negative.
Hold it! If this is the case, why are you insisting that the victim was, in fact, poisoned? If there were no traces of poison found in Streamline's body, then your entire argument about how Rainbow Dash poisoned the victim doesn't seem to follow.
I can confirm that a forensic spell was performed on both Streamline and her juice boxes. She was not suffering from an affliction that might have been caused by magic. There were no traces of any sort of magic being cast on the juice boxes either. This led me to conclude that the juiced boxes were tampered with by Hoof. A deduction supported by the statements of some Wonderbolts having seen Miss Dash doing precisely that.
Oh.
The forensic spell in question was performed in my presence for clarity's sake, as were all examinations of any evidence by my order.
Even so, this doesn't answer my question. None of this proves Rainbow Dash poisoned the victim. Again, why the insistence on Streamline having been poisoned?
As the detective stated, the forensic spell led us to the conclusion that this incident had no magical influence. There were no signs of any magic having been performed that would have caused her collapse. Thus, this crime is chemical in nature. Can we agree on that?
Yes, we can.
If that is the case, then we should also agree a poison of some sort is the most viable cause of the victim's condition.
That I'm not so sure about. But I don't really have an alternative explanation for why Streamline collapsed. And running my mouth won't get me anywhere. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt, as they say.
Sanada? Rainbow doesn't look too happy. We might want to pick up the pace. I know you've got a plan, but all Rainbow can see is you agreeing with Prosecutor Luna and letting her say what she wants.
Yes, I suppose that might be what it looks like. Of all the ponies that should let their lawyer speak for them, Rainbow Dash is top of the list. We'll make a move then. Let's see where it gets us.
Alright.
Several Wonderbolts have made mention of seeing Rainbow Dash swapping juice boxes in her own locker with the ones in the victim's, though.
Hold it! How often was Rainbow allegedly seen putting her juice boxes in Streamline's locker?
According to the several witness statements we gathered, quite regularly.
And by that you mean...
Every day before practice, without fail, starting about a week ago.
That lines up perfectly with the projected time frame for the poisoning.
Additionally, the last time the defendant was seen tampering with the victim's juice boxes was on the day of the collapse.
From bad to worse. I need to move on before this gets out of hoof. Thank you for clarifying that, Detective. Please continue your testimony.
Thus, the conclusion I have arrived at is that the juice box was the method by which the defendant poisoned the victim.
Hold it! The juice boxes being the delivery method of the suspected poison seems unlikely, wouldn't you say?
What do you mean by that?
Well, like you said, it takes repeated doses for the symptoms to take effect.
Correct.
But that's the thing. Repeated doses, Detective. Your very words. Surely you'd admit that a single juice box would not be able to fulfill, as you say, this repeated dose requirement?
I suppose it probably wouldn't. No. Numerically speaking.
Objection!
Congratulations, defense. If nothing else, you are a master at wasting the court's time. While you are here debating, of all things, basic arithmetic, you fail to account for one crucial detail. Catalyst or no, the effects of the poison did show, regardless of how elegantly you attempt to dance around that fact.
Even so...
But that's not the only point you fail to account for. The detective has clearly stated that according to several witness statements, the defendant had repeatedly and previously placed her own juice boxes into the victim's locker. It is reasonable to assume that every instance involved a tainted juice box, as evidenced by the victim's collapse. In effect, those are the repeated doses of which Detective Reed speaks. There, I have solved your mathematical conundrum. It is not a matter of one juice box. It is a matter of many.
Were these juice boxes tested for traces of the poison?
They were. The results were negligible and could not adequately determine the poison's presence.
What? And that definitely means...
But recall what the detective has said. Not just repeated doses, but small repeated doses. It is possible that the amount slipped into any individual juice box is too small to detect. Only when the poisoning catalyzes can its effect be observed, and its presence determined after the fact. Which, as we have already said, was what indeed occurred.
You can't say that for certain. Not without clear proof. At this moment, things are far too vague to come to any sort of conclusion.
Then allow me to dispel that vagueness which you claim still exists.
You have more evidence?
A witness, Blue Phoenix.
We're still in the middle of a cross-examination, though.
One that has run its course, in my opinion. But, if you would, Your Honor.
Yes, I agree. The outline of this incident and the testimony given by the detective have both been sufficiently scrutinized. Anything further would likely just be us going in circles. So I suggest we move on.
So I'm free to leave now, my lord?
Yes, you may step down, witness.
Time for me to leave the drab, tiresome confines of this courtroom behind and get back to work.
Your Honor, could we please...
I'm sorry, Mr. Wright, but no. We've spent enough time on Detective Reed's testimony.
If the judge won't give Mr. Wright any leeway, I've got no chance.
Yeah.
I suppose this is where the cross-examination ends, whether we like it or not.
Well, now, I'll be off then. Although, Miss Sanada,
Yes?
your approach to cross-examination is very unique. Extremely shrewd, meticulous, yet without meanness or malice. It's been a while since I've had somebody press me in that manner. I feel nostalgic, in a way.
Huh.
The fool speaks, the wise pony listens. Right?
Sanada?
For what it's worth, I'm glad you are still listening.
I will now call my next witness, Your Honor.
Huh.
Very well.
Spitfire, okay.
Witness, please state your name and occupation for the record.
Spitfire, ma'am. I'm the captain of the Wonderbolts.
Captain? Wow, that's quite the amazing feat. You must be a pretty big deal then, eh?
I mean, I don't like to show off, but I am proud of my service to Equestria.
Still trying to remain professional, I see.
I make sense.
Captain Spitfire,
Yes, ma'am?
you will testify in regard to both Wonderbolt reservists that are involved in this incident and the juice boxes that were placed in the victim's locker.
Copy that, ma'am.
Alright, let's see what we have this time here. Also, I do kind of apologize for not saying much, but I do like to just take all this in. And I just don't have a lot to say because of how little information we have. I'm trying my best. There's only so much I can do. Rainbow Dash and Streamline.
It's not an exaggeration to say that Rainbow Dash is one of our fastest flyers. Streamline's almost just as good, too. The two of them share a dorm space, and their lockers are right next to each other as well. It's like that detective said. Several ponies saw Rainbow swap a juice box with one in Streamline's locker, just before the collapse. After I was notified, I called for Rainbow's detainment. Unfortunately, rather than come quietly, she ended up causing a scene and resisted arrest.
Thank you for your testimony, Captain Spitfire.
Of course, Princess Luna.
Now, I believe we have a cross-examination to—
Actually, ma'am, and Your Honor, I'd like to say a few more words, if that's all right.
Oh? Well then, go ahead, witness.
In my time as captain of the Wonderbolts, I've seen a lot of newbies come and go. Some wash out long before they can achieve liftoff. Rainbow Dash, however, has certainly demonstrated she could be a capable member. Her accomplishments really do speak for themselves. She'll make an excellent Wonderbolt one day.
Do not tell me, Captain Spitfire, that you mean to slam your own gavel and rule in place of the court.
Not at all, ma'am. It's not my place to judge.
On that, we agree. However, I would advise you to refrain from making your unprompted opinions known, unless directly asked.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for letting me speak regardless.
No doubt about it. Spitfire's proud of Rainbow. It must pain her to have to testify against her.
Yeah.
Yet she chose to anyway. I wonder, does she want to protect Rainbow, or does her duty to the Wonderbolts always come first?
Now then,
That's a good
defense,
question.
you may begin your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It's not an exaggeration to say that Rainbow Dash is one of our fastest flyers. Streamline's almost just as good, too. The two of them share a dorm space, and their lockers are right next to each other as well. It's like that detective said. Several ponies saw Rainbow swap a juice box with one in Streamline's locker, just before the collapse.
Hold it! How do you know that Rainbow was putting her own juice boxes in, and not, say, Streamline's boxes?
Objection!
Defense, I begin to tire at your incessant habit of blowing more hot air. The prosecution already verified that they were different juice boxes by examining the boxes themselves. We found that the boxes of the victim and the defendant had different shipment numbers, and that at the time of the crime, those two sets of numbers were both in the victim's locker, indicating one was being swapped out with another. Combined then with Detective Reed's testimony, we have no doubt that they were swapped by the defendant. It is self-evident.
That matches with what we found, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I should have expected Luna to be that thorough. Still, it was worth testing the waters there. All right. Then, Captain, let me revise my question. We heard from Detective Reed that my client had been swapping out the boxes for a little while. Now, you verified that by saying, before the collapse, she was seen swapping one out again, correct?
Didn't I already say that? Why are you asking me to repeat myself?
Witness, if the defense didn't hear you the first time, it's not their fault. Just answer the question.
Now that's projection if I've ever heard it.
Yes, that's correct.
Then what happened to the one Rainbow swapped out?
I actually don't know.
You don't know? Then what about this? Detective Reed speculated that my client had been performing the swap repeatedly for about a week. So what happened to those juice boxes? Where'd they go?
10 to 1 says they were thrown out. but I get the feeling that's not what you mean.
What do you mean, defense?
Is it important to know where those discarded boxes went? Maybe. They could provide us some new information if we were to test them. But I don't think I want to reveal that card yet. And besides, if no pony knows where the boxes went, I may not get that far in asking for them. I'll inquire more about this later. For the time being, though. Thank you, Captain. You may continue your testimony.
Okay.
Sanada?
You're playing a very interesting game here, Sanada, and I like it.
After I was notified, I called for Rainbow's detainment. Unfortunately, rather than come quietly, she ended up causing a scene and resisted arrest.
Hold it! She resisted arrest?
You're darn right she did. She took a swing at one of the Air Wing security forces. Thanks Celestia she missed, or she'd have been charged with assault. Honestly, I get why she'd be upset, but she should have known better. It made the Wonderbolts as a whole look bad.
Murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ.
No murder was committed, Prosecutor Luna. And attempted murder is still under question.
But of course, still, look upon your client's face. Would an innocent pony look so incensed?
Prosecutor Luna would, of course, know that she cannot attempt to lead the gallery. More than that, surely she can acknowledge that an upset face does not inherently mean guilt. After all, any innocent pony would be upset at being wrongfully arrested.
As you say.
Well, that's all Spitfire has to say. What do you think?
It's hard to say. The only genuinely new piece of information is that Rainbow Dash resisted arrest.
Yeah.
Which, as bad as it looks, isn't as shocking as one might think, given whom we're talking about.
You know, there's still time. We can go over Spitfire's testimony again.
No. I believe I'm through with it.
What? You're done? Already?
So far, aside from the juice box swapping, nothing surprising has been said. So perhaps the prosecution has played all its pieces, which may mean...
If there's nothing further, I think we can conclude this cross-examination.
And hopefully, this trial, Your Honor?
Just a moment, Prosecutor Luna. Let me give my opinion thus far. The case against Miss Rainbow Dash appears rather solid, all things considered. Witnesses, several of them, testify as to her actions and behaviors the day of the collapse. And we at least have an idea of what actions were taken. That of poisoning. Unless I'm missing something, everything has been established.
Everything except one thing, Your Honor. A possible motive.
True.
Neither Detective Reed nor Captain Spitfire provided us an idea of one after all.
That is true. Captain Spitfire?
Well, Your Honor, it, isn't really my place to speculate, is it?
Prosecutor Luna did say that you should not provide your opinions unprompted. Consider this the prompt. And while you're at it, you should consider something else. Assuming that Rainbow Dash did swap out the juice boxes in Streamline's locker with her own, we lack any idea of why she did that.
We know why. She wished to poison the victim.
But why? What would drive some pony, any pony, to attempt something like that?
Why does that matter, defense? Motive hardly changes the outcome.
Isn't it obvious? So long as that hole exists, it would be inappropriate for us to assume anything definitive about this case has been established.
Yeah.
We, as arbiters of the rule of law...
Do not cite the rule to me, defense. I was there when it was written. And I see and acknowledge your point. I welcome it, in fact, for the opportunity it affords.
You welcome it?
Indeed. If the motive is what you desire, I shall be happy to provide.
She knew. I had a feeling she would. But then, why didn't she start off with that?
Captain Spitfire,
Yes, ma'am?
I believe it is in the best interest of the court that you now provide some additional context.
Additional? Oh, you must mean...
Indeed. Proceed, witness.
All right, well, the thing is, this isn't the first incident between Rainbow Dash and Streamline. There have been arguments before, usually small ones, nothing that you wouldn't expect from competing team members. But a few days before the collapse, Rainbow and Streamline were arguing again during practice. It got heated. Very heated.
Would you explain to the court what you mean by that?
Uh-oh.
Rainbow Dash said,
You're nothing but a dirty cheater who should never have been let into the Wonderbolts.
So, how exactly was Streamline a cheater, Captain?
I can't say, Your Honor. I only arrived after the argument and ordered the two of them to separate and cool off. I never heard what caused it.
Wait. Hold on a moment. Think this through. It was obvious from the start that Rainbow Dash didn't like Streamline. But now, calling Streamline a cheater.
Logic, okay.
This information seems extremely relevant.
Yeah.
If I consider what Phoenix said back at the academy, he told me his Magatama detected that Rainbow was hiding some sort of secret, didn't he? But not just any old secret. One seemingly related to her arrest. And how that whole just a case of bad timing might be a lie.
Yeah. That's probably related to it.
And then, with what Rainbow said in the detention center, did Streamline become a reservist around the same time you did?
No, she became one a little bit later. I never heard of her before, and then she suddenly found her way onto the team. Not like she deserved it, though.
Why's that?
Because she just doesn't, okay?
The signs were there. Yep, and we got the logic together.
That's it, isn't it? That's what you were hiding from me all this time. You know your accusation gives you a clear motive. So you've kept it to yourself, kept it from me. But now I know. Now the whole court knows. Not just that you have a motive for wanting to get rid of Streamline, but that you've been lying from the start.
Rainbow.
Why, Rainbow Dash? Why wouldn't you tell me this?
Whoa, that's a little below the belt, isn't it? To think she'd be so harsh to a fellow Wonderbolt Reserve.
Calling it harsh does it a disservice, Your Honor, for this was not some petty insult, but a targeted and visceral accusation against the victim's character. It did not stem from a place of childish malice, but instead of fiendish hatred. Hatred so intense, it could motivate any pony to attempt murder.
Hold on a second. That's quite the reach, Prosecutor Luna.
Is it? Is it really, Blue Phoenix? How ironic. You were so quick to bring up last week's trial in an attempt to console me earlier. Have you already forgotten what happened? How hatred, as tempestuous as it was fickle, stabbed at the heart of the matter, and was its origin? Besides, it is not much of a reach when we consider the defendant herself. She has not expressed an ounce of regret or remorse.
Prosecutor Luna, that is only baseless conjecture.
Baseless? Just look at the defendant's face! I tell you, we need not be augurs observing the hideous encirclements of crows to gain an understanding of the defendant's blackguard heart. Trust your eyes. See what they tell you.
This is bad. If this keeps up, I'll lose. I can't let that happen. I can't let Luna sow any more doubt in Rainbow's character. Or rather, I need to turn the focus away from anything that resembles motive. Let me think. Yes, I can try that. My client's facial disposition aside,
What? Sanada, what the heck are you?
that does not mean that everything in this case has been uncovered.
There are more unanswered questions, you mean?
Yes, Your Honor. And as the latest witness, Captain Spitfire, has yet to be dismissed, I'd like to ask her for answers.
All right, shoot.
Okay. Got a chance to breathe. Better make the most of it.
Yeah.
I want to return to the question of poison. This grickle grass, where do you suppose it was brewed?
Definitely not on Academy grounds.
Why do you say that?
'Cause it'd be too obvious. There are way too many ponies around, and any pony could have smelled something foul if Rainbow was cooking poison in, say, the kitchen.
I see. What about storage? Were any containers or cylinders missing?
For holding the poison after it was made? No, we didn't find anything like that.
Prosecutor Luna?
Our investigation did not find a witch's cauldron, if that is what the defense is getting at.
That's exactly what I mean. There are no traces of evidence to show that Rainbow had made grickle grass on site.
Then forgive me for rushing to the obvious rebuttal, but that just means that the defendant could have made the poison elsewhere. And then brought it to the Academy.
Could she have? Captain Spitfire, tell us. Could she have?
No, I can tell you with 100% certainty
Yeah.
she could not have.
And why is that?
It's simple, Your Honor. That grickle grass, if it really is that uncommon, then no matter how easy it is to make, the materials you need to make it would stand out like an unpreened feather. In other words, if Rainbow brought anything remotely exotic or suspicious looking onto Academy grounds, it would have been confiscated immediately.
Yet contraband of any sort is part and parcel of Academy life. Undoubtedly, there are many ponies who have snuck things into the barracks.
Undoubtedly, sure. But the key point is the level of suspicion the materials for grickle grass would raise. A chocolate bar, for instance, while technically contraband, doesn't arouse as much suspicion.
You had to bring that up? Regardless, we didn't confiscate or find anything suspicious either before or after the incident.
Thank you, Captain Spitfire. Your Honor, given this information, the defense argues that no pony knows how my client could have brought the supposed poison into the Academy. Therefore...
Objection!
Come on, I was just getting warmed up.
So, it appears that you have some vivacity left in you, Miss Sanada. Good. If you had been any more laid back in your approach, you'd have fallen over.
Your comment is noted, Prosecutor Luna.
Unfortunately, your terminal rally has led you to a critical oversight. You say that no pony knows how your client could have snuck in poison? That quite simply is not true. For we know some pony who most assuredly does.
You do?
Before we get into that, though, Your Honor, I believe Captain Spitfire has been detained long enough. The prosecution humbly requests she be dismissed from the stand, that she may return to her Wonderbolt duties post-haste.
Yeah, probably got a bunch of paperwork lording over my desk right about now.
The court grants this request. Witness, you may step down. Now then, Prosecutor Luna, this other pony, are they to be our next witness?
They are, Your Honor.
Bailiff, bring in the next...
One moment, Your Honor. Unfortunately, you cannot bring them in.
But why not? Normally, witnesses love being brought in to testify. Honestly, that's one of my favorite parts of the job.
Your Honor, it's basically a roll call. Nothing too special.
Wait.
Your enthusiasm is laudable, Your Honor. But sadly, while they have been summoned, this witness hasn't arrived yet.
Oh.
As such, we would ask for a short recess to wait for them. Unless the defense has any objections.
No objections. I have a feeling that even if I had any, she'd swat them down.
Yeah.
How typical, I suppose.
Very well. The court will be given a 15-minute recess while the prosecution prepares their next witness. Court will now adjourn.
I'd better make the most of that time. Because something tells me I'm going to need it.
Yeah. It's Pinky, isn't it? Oh boy. Well, in typical Ace Attorney fashion, things have gone from bad to worse. I knew going into this trial was probably gonna get worse, but I didn't expect it to get that worse. Oh boy. Yeah, Rainbow's probably gonna have a lot to say about that, and I understand the logic that Sanada's doing, trying to slowly gather up information over time. But, oh boy. I mean, we did know that Pinky was gonna be a witness because of Logic Chest, but oh boy. We're gonna have to find a way to turn this around, and badly. And I can already tell one thing for sure. Testifying Pinkie Pie is probably not gonna be smooth sailings. Oh boy. We can only see what the next episode holds for us. See you all next time.